I was sitting with one of my incredible clients, Paddy, in a hotel meeting room one sunny day. The goal of the day was to figure out how to scale his business. So we started out with one of the 3 layers of customer journey mapping, process mapping. We looked through what's the lead gen process? What happens on the inquiry call? How do people move forward and get a proposal? What happens when they say yes? How did they get onboarded? What are the steps in delivering the project? All of that. And on paper, Paddy's business looked freaking amazing. He had 4 employees. He was doing about 350K in turnover, and there were repeat clients. There was demand. There was plenty happening behind the scenes. And then we put the actual journey up. And this is where it got a little bit uncomfortable. Every time we got to a point where someone had to make a decision, the same name showed up. Who generates the leads? Paddy. Who does the marketing? Paddy. Who does the sales call? Paddy. Who handles the clients who need reassurance? Paddy. Who approves the proposal? Paddy. Who decides if this thing is inside scope or outside scope? Paddy. Who knows the work is ready to go out? Paddy. Who does the team go to when they're nearly sure but they'd rather get that little nod of approval? Paddy. For frick's sake, Paddy was everywhere. And there was this moment where he just looked at all of the steps we'd drawn out on the flip chart, and his face said it all. You know that face people make when their business is absolutely just told on them? Like, that was the face. There was a little bit of a laugh, sort of shock, but it was a major aha. And then he had that look of, oh, for fuck's sake, it's me. I'm the roadblock, because he could actually finally see it. He was the chief everything officer. And that's funny for all of about 2 seconds. Then you realize it's a very expensive job title. Now, this is the bit I really want you to hear today. When Paddy started removing himself from the places where the business was really depending on his decision-making only, the entire business changed. It went from 4 employees to 9, and turnover went from 350K to 950K in less than 12 months. And he didn't do that by finding another magical 10 hours. He did it by getting the reasoning behind his specific decisions out of his head and into the business. So that's what we're going to be talking about. If your business feels heavy, even though you have people, systems, software, processes, you've meetings, Slack, and all the things, look at your customer journey. That's the obvious next step for you. And there's a good chance that when you look at it, it's going to show you the founder journey underneath. And what I mean by that is this. The customer thinks they're moving through a process. The team thinks they're moving through a system, and you think you're protecting your high standards and reputation. And to be fair, you probably are. That's usually where this starts. It's because you know the clients better than anyone else. You know what good looks like. You can feel when something is slightly off somewhere in the business, even before anybody else can sense it, never mind explain it. And that's a skill. It really is. The problem starts when the whole business needs access to that skill through you every single time. And that's where it gets messy, because now every serious decision slows you down. Every awkward client moment comes back to you, and every proposal that needs that little bit of commercial savvy, that lands on your desk. So every time the team is unsure, they come looking for you. And then you're wondering why you're wrecked and working around the clock. You're wondering why you hired good people and the business still feels like it's attached to you and your nervous system and every single part of you. You're wondering why, yes, sure, you can take a week off technically, but your brain never fully unplugs, because the work is moving, but the responsibility bit has only moved a teeny tiny bit. And the decision making and autonomy to make judgment calls for your business hasn't moved enough. Does that sound familiar? So let me show you what I mean by this. When most people map a customer journey, they map the client's exercise from the time the client says yes right the way through till the project is done. But if you're running a founder-led consulting business or an expert business or a service business where your name still carries most of the trust, map something else as well. Map the places where the business still needs you in order for it to operate safely and for you to feel like it's safe. And that wording is deliberate, safe. Because a lot of the founder bottleneck is emotional before it's operational. The team wants to get it right. Like they're coming into work every day to do a genuinely good job. And without question, you want to protect the standards and reputation that you've created and built over years and years of experience. So everybody is trying to do the right thing, which is freaking fantastic and also very expensive if everything roots back through you. So here's a very simple way to look at it. Take a look at the customer journey of your most profitable offer. Don't make a massive project out of it. Don't get colored post-its out unless you love that sort of thing genuinely. But don't let the stationery become the work. Map the journey from the first proper inquiry through to delivery, renewal, referral, whatever applies in your business. And then put your initials beside every point where the business currently needs you. Your decisions, your approval, any type of reassurance, your memory, your stories that you have, and the relationships that you've built, your commercial read on particular situations, maybe even your taste about specific decisions to do with design or anything to do with the office and things that happen behind the scenes. Your ability to say the thing in the way the client will actually hear it. All of that stuff. Put your initials there. And be honest, because this is the bit where founders start negotiating with the page and they start saying things like, well, technically, John could do that. Okay, fair. But has John ever been allowed to do it without you hovering somewhere in the background? Like, has he done it when the client was nervous? Has he done it when there was money attached to the decision? Has he done it when the work was nearly right, but something felt a little bit off on your end? Because that's the real test. It's very easy to delegate the obvious bits like book the calls, send the invoice, upload the document, schedule the meeting. Fine. The business will usually cope with delegating those without question. But the bottleneck tends to hide in the moments where decision making and judgments are required. Where do we hold the line on a particular aspect of the project or the pricing? Like, where do we soften the message around what we want to communicate to the client? Where do we hold fast and say no or ask for an extra payment from the client? Like, where do we make exceptions for people? Where do we need to reassure the client? What type of reassurance is appropriate? Where do we know this work is good enough? Where do we know it needs another review? That's where your initials will probably show up. And if they do, don't panic. It's okay. It's information. Bit annoying, maybe, but incredibly useful because the map is showing you where the business has learned to literally borrow your brain. And I use that word learned deliberately too, because your team didn't wake up one morning and go, do you know what would be great? Let's make our founder the final stop for everything. They literally don't do that. It happens in those quick conversations or messages you send them with your team. And where you're saying stuff like, oh, just send it to me first, or I'll just have a quick look, or leave that one with me. You jump into the client email because you know exactly what to say. You rewrite the proposal because it was nearly there. You make the exception because it'll only take 5 minutes. And listen, I am saying this with love. Most founders with high standards have done some version of this. And honestly, I've done versions of it myself because I know what it's like in that moment. It just feels quicker or easier. It feels like you care, which you do. It feels like leadership. And sometimes it is. It's all of those things. But when it keeps happening, the business is learning the wrong lesson. It learns that the safest route is always back to you and through you. And then you hire good people and you wonder why they're constantly coming back to you with questions all the time. And to be fair, they're responding to the system that they have been trained inside. So if decisions get corrected after they make them, they'll wait. If you say you want ownership and then take the decisions back, when the stakes rise, they'll wait. If the client relaxes only when you appear, they're going to call you. If the best work gets finished in your head, they'll bring it to your head. That's logic. Annoying logic, but it is logic. And this is especially true for the type of clients I work with inside Millionize. They are usually extremely capable founders, like sharp people, commercial people, people with a great reputation, people who can read their clients and know what's going to happen before it even happens. People who can hear what a client is really asking for, sometimes underneath the surface thing that they share with you. So the standard is real. You're probably seeing things other people are missing. You're probably do and make decisions and judgment calls that your team has yet to learn. You probably do carry a level of authority that clients respond to. And I'm not going to pretend that that isn't true, because that would be totally silly. The issue is where all of that lives. If it lives only in your head, then the business has to keep coming back to your head. And that's the whole point. And I know it sounds obvious when you say it out loud. The reality is, probably most expensive problems do. They sit there causing chaos for years, and then someone names them and you go, for God's sake. So let's talk about one of the sneakiest places this shows up. Reassurance. This is a big one, because reassurance can look like care, and sometimes it is care, but it can also become the reason you're dragged back into everything. The team can do the work, the process can exist, the client can be happy most of the time, and then something gets a little bit wobbly. Maybe a deadline moves, or a client asks for something outside scope, someone questions the value, a piece of work comes back with a slightly awkward comment or a bit of feedback, and suddenly you're pulled back into the conversation because you calm the conversation. You've been doing this so long, you know what to say, you know when to be warm, when to be firm, you know when the client needs more context or when the client actually needs a boundary. And that is high level judgment. And it's also where a lot of founders accidentally make themselves essential. So what I want you to do is slow that down. Take the thing that you do automatically and pull it apart. Where are you listening for when a client gets wobbly? How do you know if they're worried or if they're pushing scope to you? Where do you give reassurance? Where do you say, no, we're not doing that, without making the whole thing weird? And that is the bit that your team needs. Those are the types of judgments that they need to be able to learn. And it has yet to come out of your head. Now, before anyone starts building a 97-page standard operating procedure that nobody will ever read, please don't do that. I have very little patience for folders full of grown-up looking documents that make everybody feel organized. Complete and utter waste of time, effort, and money. And life is way too short for that crap. So the work here is to transfer your judgment. Very different. So if your SOP says something like send proposal to client, grand, that's a task. But what does a strong proposal look like? What is the definition of done or good? And where does it need confidence? Where does it create safety? What do we never apologize for? What do we never include just because the client asked nicely? And that's the standard. People I work with, they've never written any of this down because they don't even realize they're doing it. It's so subconscious, intrinsic, and natural to you, and it feels obvious to you because it's your brain. Everyone else needs it totally and utterly spelled out. And that's annoying because the bottleneck often hides in the short, quick conversations without you ever realizing it. The quick look and the nod, all of that. That will, those are the types of things where, again, people will just say, will you just sense check this? Or can I just sense check that before it goes out? Can I run something by you? The little exception, the client wobble, the final polish, none of those things look massive on their own. But when you put them all together and suddenly the entire business is queuing outside your brain and stealing your time too, and then you're sitting there at 9 o'clock, maybe even still working, wondering why you can't switch off. This is why. So with Paddy, we didn't just rip him out of the business and hope everyone coped. That would be lazy and fairly stupid. You don't have to remove a founder by throwing decisions at the team and calling it empowerment. Not a good way to demonstrate leadership. So that's how you would create chaos with leadership as a word attached to it. What we did was much more practical. We looked at where the business was currently prompting him to step in to make a decision, and then we gave those decisions somewhere to live. Because people can't protect a standard they can't see. They can try, they can work hard, they can care deeply. But if the standard lives in your instinct, they'll keep coming back to your instinct, right? And that's why hiring doesn't always fix this. And I know that's also deeply irritating because hiring feels, again, like another grown-up answer. You think, right, I need capacity. I'll bring someone in, maybe even someone experienced. And maybe you do need someone. And maybe you do need someone. The new person just joins the queue. That's what happens. They join the queue of people waiting for you. So now you've added a salary. Congratulations. The bottleneck has company. That's a painful realization when you come to that realization, especially when you've hired someone good, because then you start thinking, why are they still asking me these questions? And the answer might be because I showed them the task. I didn't show them the thinking. And there's a huge difference. So to avoid all of that, here's what I do. And if you want to tell me to fuck off, that's also totally fine. But I'm going to tell you anyway. Take one customer journey this week, do the map, then mark your initials beside every point where the customer comes back to you and look for repeats. Simple as that, because the repeat points are telling you something. They're showing you where the business needs a stronger structure around your judgment. And then ask this question: what judgment is the business borrowing from me here? Write that down, literally. What judgment is the business borrowing from me here? Because that question changes the process. It moves you away from why is everyone coming to me and brings you into what have I failed to teach the business and the team yet? And that's a much better question, a more honest one. And sometimes the answer is literally a decision rule. Sometimes it's a better handover, or maybe language, or a clearer commercial standard. Maybe it's a boundary. Maybe it's something you need to stop, or stop rescuing something that the team is actually more than capable of handling if you let them. And that last one is annoying as well. I know, loads of annoying things today, but it's often the one thing. And this is the kind of work I do with clients in Millionize, because at that level, people generally don't need another motivational talk. Like, come on, you're motivated enough. You've built the thing. The work is more specific at this stage. What currently depends on you that needs to become part of the business? Is it the offer, the client experience, standards, decision-making, commercial savviness or judgment, the way trust gets created without you personally having to be involved in every conversation? That's the work. Your thinking still shapes the business. Your standards also shape the business. Your authority will continue to shape the business. Grand. That's as it should be. But the business has to be able to use those things without dragging you into every serious moment. And that's where the scale is. So Paddy started removing himself from the places where the business had been borrowing his brain, carefully, slowly, deliberately, with the standards all still intact. And the business absolutely grew. And that is what can happen when a business gets access to the founder's judgment without needing the founder at the access point. So this is landing a little bit too close to home for you. Do your map homework and then start teaching the reasoning behind your decisions and judgments to the business. Share the stories that only you typically share, that clients can relate to, so that you can step away and not have to tell them yourself. Slow down to do this work. Do it proper, because your business can keep your standards as it grows. It can keep your care, your commercial savvy, and the thing that makes client trust you. But those things can't stay trapped in your head if the business is meant to grow beyond your personal capacity. So get them out, put them where the business can use them, and have a proper look at your customer journey, because it may be showing you the real founder journey underneath. And once you can see that route, you can change it.